All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Today, we're going to talk about the California state funding for counties and administrative CBOs for 2020. The agenda today is we're going to do some introductions. We're going to talk about some census tools and services, and then I will be handing it off to the California Complete Count Office to talk about funding. And then we're going to end with some Q&A that you guys submitted with questions for the California Complete Count Office. So I'm so delighted to have on this webinar Ditas Katague and Adriana Martinez with me. Ditas, as many of you guys know, is a director of the California Complete Count Committee. She also served as the chair of the U.S. Census Bureau's National Advisory Committee on Race, Ethnicity, and Populations. This is her third census, so she's a real pro at this. And in her first census in 2000, she led a groundbreaking multilingual multimedia outreach effort that resulted in a mail-in return rate that outpaced the entire nation. So we're so pleased to have Ditas on this. Adriana Martinez is also joining us today. She is the Deputy Director of Outreach for the California Complete Count Office. She was previously the Director of External Affairs for AT&T. And then previous to that, she was the Assistant Deputy Mayor of Economic Development in the LA Mayor's Office for Economic Development. So I'm so pleased to have both Ditas and Adriana. My name is Perla Ni, and I am the founder and CEO of CommunityConnect Labs. Before this, I was the founder of the Stanford Social Innovation Review, as well as great nonprofits. For those of you who don't know what CommunityConnect Labs is, we are a nonprofit that provides software and services for governments and service providers to help them connect with hard-to-reach minority, immigrant, low-income populations. We are focused on the census right now, and we're providing some tools and services to help you engage your hard-to-count communities. Just really fast, I'm just going to give an overview about our solutions and services, and then I'll be handing it over to Ditas and Adriana. We've created, in partnership with many of you folks working in the communities that you know best, some solutions that are really tailored to populations for whom English is a second language, who are hard to reach and may currently have a distrust of the government. Our first tool that I wanted to just mention real quick is the Canvassing Optimizer. And this is really to help you coordinate your canvassing, your reporting, and it's accessible in multiple languages so that you can deploy your volunteers, whether they speak Spanish or Vietnamese or Chinese. So very simply, it's a mobile web application. Canvassers go on their phone and they can mark the places that they've gone to and report on the conversations that they've had. Our second tool related to this is the Community Motivator, which allows you to transform your in-person interactions to digital follow-up. So let's say you meet folks canvassing or you meet folks in person at your health fair or your community barbecue. You're able to easily follow up with them through digital scheduled campaigns. This simplifies your content creation, your staff time, and it makes it so easy for you to help continue to engage those folks that you've had person-to-person interactions with. The Field Staff Recruiter tool is a tool that helps you engage your populations and your communities in helping staff the field staff positions that the Census Bureau is having difficulty filling. So there's going to be more than 500,000 positions that are open across the United States, especially in communities that are hard to reach. And the Census Bureau really needs help to fill those positions for field address listers as well as enumerators. Our tool helps you easily source people from your local communities and shepherds them through the process of applying and going through the recruiting process to become an address lister or an enumerator. It's very simple to use. Again, all you need to do is opt people in, and then it can take them through the process and successfully get those jobs at the Census Bureau. The help desk is something that many of you guys have inquired about, and this is really a 24/7 automated texting question and answer service that'll be available in multiple languages, and it helps your communities get questions answered any time of the day in the language that they would prefer. And when we don't have an automated answer to their specific question, we also have a way for them to find in-person assistance, so they can refer people to your location or other locations where there might be in-person assistance for their help. Lastly, this is a tool, the misinformation tool is one way in which communities, you guys can report on any misinformation that you're seeing and really alert other communities as well as your local jurisdictions to any misinformation you are seeing on WhatsApp, on Facebook, in person on a flyer, or something that you've seen on YouTube. One additional service that we're providing is GIS planning and technical support. We understand how important it is to count people where they are, and we understand that GIS and the Esri platform is going to be central to the state's outreach efforts, and we're here to help you make sure that you understand and you can learn how to use the GIS planning tools, and we're here to provide you with the technical support so you can do your planning and your reporting. All right, so with that aside, I'm going to hand this off to Ditas and Adriana to tell you about the state funding for census outreach. The RFP, I understand, for ACBOs has not yet been published yet, so they're going to be somewhat limited in what they can say about that today. But we want to thank you for all the questions that you submitted, and they're going to do their best to answer those as best as you can. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Ditas.
Great, thank you. Let me just click this to show my screen. And let's see, I'm hoping you guys, it looks like you guys are all seeing, there it goes. Does that look good? Awesome. So, well, welcome everyone, and thank you, Perla, for pulling together this webinar. As Perla mentioned, we're in the process of finalizing the administrative community-based organization regional contract, the RFP, and we're hoping to get that out later today. As soon as I get off this webinar, we'll finalize it and put it out there. So we're a little bit limited according to what my lawyers are telling me of what we can answer about those questions, but we'll try to do our best. So thank all of you guys for being here. As you know, the Complete Count office is within the Government Operations Agency, GovOps. We're really happy to have their support because they've really brought us along, and we are up to almost 24 staff to really manage this effort of getting a complete count here in California. So let's go on and take a look at, just reviewing quickly, what some of those goals are for and the roles. So as you guys can see, the Census Bureau is a separate operation. It's a federal operation, and they really control the work that is being done to enumerate. They want to make sure that everyone is counted once, only once, and in the right place. However, the California Complete Count mission, the whole reason why the state gets involved is that we want to ensure that Californians get their fair share of federal resources and congressional representation by encouraging the full participation of Californians in Census 2020. Now, I know, and as Perla mentioned, this will be my third decennial census, and we couldn't have done as well as we've done in 2000 and 2010 without our partners at the county level and throughout the state with our community-based organizations. So using the successes of 2010 and 2000, we are re-engaging at the state level to make sure that the dollars that we did get, and we'll talk about those later on, are really pushed out to the local levels where we think the trusted messengers are really the folks that can make sure that we get a complete and accurate count. So this being Census 2020, there are significant challenges that we didn't face in 2000 and in 2010. And many of you are probably familiar with this. It will be the first time that we're going to do an online digital census self-response for the census. The Census Bureau is, testing that, and we are hopeful to see a sample of that, of what it will look like, to really make sure that we understand any barriers or complications or things that we need to be educating Californians about as they try to, for the first time, answer online. With it being online in California, we have significant areas that either have low or no broadband access or have low subscription rates. And we are really taking a look at that from a state level, but are looking to our partners that are on the ground that will be funding counties and the community-based organizations to have an understanding about where those gaps are in order to make sure that folks will have the opportunity to either answer online or to actually call ahead and ask for a paper form. The paper form, however, only about 20% of the nation's population will be getting that. It will only be available in 2 languages, English and Spanish. That proposes significant challenges across our state in areas that will need paper forms in other languages. I did mention, though, that the Census Bureau is putting it in 12 languages online, and then they will have about, I think, 59 language guides that will be online, and they'll be done in videos to also assist in language. Again, most of you guys are familiar. The federal funding priorities, they've shifted. They've been severely funded in my role as chair of the National Advisory Committee over the last 6 years. I watched as continuing resolution were signed to just eke along the funding that was going in preparation for the decennial census. So that's left the federal operations at a disadvantage. They had to cancel 2 of their end-to-end their tests that were going to be testing both tribal areas as well as rural areas. They did 1 test this last spring in Providence, Rhode Island, and that was really to just test their processes. They did no outreach and they did no advertising. So the federal funding, it's a challenge. It's something that, obviously we at the state cannot help with, but in answer to those challenges, the governor and the legislature has invested a significant amount of money for our state to make sure that as we look at our diverse population and how hard to count we are, that we would be able to get the help out there. In addition, the Census Bureau, or the U.S. Census Bureau, with a reduction in spending and funding, they are not going to have any what I call bricks and mortar questionnaire assistance centers on the ground. In 2000 and 2010, we both funded at the state level and community-based organizations, having places in neighborhoods where people could get the right help from the right people at the right time. The U.S. Census Bureau is not going to be doing that. They'll have what they call mobile or pop-up. So I think we know that we need to bring the census out to where the people are. And so that will be part of what we're looking for all of our partners, is to allow access in the neighborhood easily, so it makes it easier for people to self-respond. So those are some of the challenges. There are some other unique challenges that we want to address that I'm sure you're all familiar with, but we have some really great opportunities here in California. We are so far ahead of any other state in terms of investing and putting planning into what we're going to do over the next 18 to 24 months to get a complete count. There are engaged foundations, of which many of you on the phone are part of that, and so we are very thankful to have your participation. So we all know you guys wouldn't be on the phone about what's for stake. It's power and it's money, and it's congressional representation, and even more so, we don't want to lose those. A recent report came out and said, again, North Carolina and Texas, depending on how they do in terms of their count, might gain up to 2 seats each, Florida as well. So we don't want to lose to any of those other states, and that's why, we are investing so much. And again, money, the dollars that come back overall from the federal government to the state and local governments is a huge impetus for why we're investing so much. So let's talk about roles. So many conversations I get into, in fact, people who haven't been engaged in census sometimes get confused about, wait, what are the roles? Does the state hire enumerators? And so we have to kind of go through and talk about that. And I think it's helpful as the partners on the phone to make sure that when they are talking to new folks about that they understand the difference about the role. So the United States Census Bureau, of course, it is their operation. the largest operation outside of war that they undertake. And so they are solely responsible for the enumeration, the tools, the whole process of data collection for this. So normally states wouldn't get involved, but since 2000 we've realized that the state and local government having roles would increase the accuracy of our count. So the state, my team and the rest of the state government, our roles are to coordinate, to collaborate, to ensure that the dollars that the state is investing are invested wisely on the ground, and that they are focused at getting the hardest to reach, the least likely to respond Californians to respond. But in addition, we also want just all Californians to respond. And partnering with the U.S. Census Bureau and having a great relationship with the U.S. Census Bureau here on the ground in California, as well as understanding at a national level what they're doing operationally, whether it be service-based enumeration, or group quarters. Service-based enumeration is how the U.S. Census Bureau enumerates non-conventional, people experiencing homelessness. We need to understand how the Census Bureau is doing that in order to really understand how we at the state, as well as our local government and community-based partners, can assist. So local government has a huge role. As most of you know, we released the funding to the counties on November 9th. And so we are waiting to hear back from the counties in terms of who are opting in. And one of the main goals for engaging counties is to have them set up their local complete count committees. Those committees are really the organizing entity that we like to see at the local levels, and that is recognized both at the federal level as well as here at the state level. They're not limited to geographic. They can be set up by city governments, community leaders, volunteers, ethnic groups can also set up their own local complete count committees. Many of them are staffed by volunteers, and others are staffed through funding through foundations, funding through the state and local government contracts. So we are really leaning heavily on local government to help plan at the local level and execute the local and regional plans. Other partners and roles are tribal governments. Tribal governments, again, they face different challenges in enumeration, and we have just recently completed tribal consultations with the federally recognized tribes here in California. Then another key partner are the administrative CBOs, and of which many of you are on the line, and the smaller CBOs. And just for a quick minute, the administrative CBOs are really what we're looking for in terms of when we thought about how do we divide up the state, because we have over 13.5 million households, and we're expecting to have over 40 million people. How do we, from a state level, figure out how to engage on the ground? And so we took a similar approach to what we did in 2000, which was dividing the state up into regions, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. But what we're looking for, and the reason why I call them administrative CBOs, is because they're larger community-based organizations that have what I call administrative chops, that they're able to administer, serve as a fiscal agent, to subcontract to the smaller community-based organizations who may be really the folks that are truly the trusted messengers in those hard to count areas, and connecting with those hard to reach, least likely to respond populations. And so we've decided to, again, use the model we used in 2000 to engage with administrative CBOs, of which you will see the RFP later on today. And then finally, the media, both ethnic as well as mainstream media, will play a big role. The U.S. Census Bureau, they have over $400 million that they're investing across the nation. We know that their media campaign, which they've gone through a lot of testing, will probably be at a higher, more broad level in terms of messaging. And so, I mean, frankly, we know that in our experience, Californians know Californians best. And so we're really looking at the investments of the state's media dollars to engage on that local level, on that ethnic media level, in that linguistically appropriate level to provide messaging to our hardest to count folks. So that's kind of the overview of the roles. So let's just talk a little bit about the overview of what we've been doing. Well, as I mentioned, we started so much earlier than any other state. Just for perspective, in 2000, I didn't come aboard till December 1999, like just a little bit over 4 months prior to April 1st, which is Census Day. In 2010, I came aboard December of 2008, like about 10 years prior from today. And this time around, I came aboard in April 2017 to really start looking at how do we as a state set up so we're not rushing like we did in the past 2 times. How do we set it up and leverage all the partnerships that we have out there to really have a complete coverage of the state? So what we did within the first couple of months, we did receive a $10 million allocation for fiscal year 2017-18, and we invested $7 million of that in the local update for census addresses. It was encouraging localities to participate in LUCA, and those went directly out to the local governments. There was quite a bit of success in that area and participation, and I don't know if I'll get it right or if LA County is on the line, but I believe that they uncovered, I think it was something like 700,000 new addresses that were not captured in the U.S. Census Bureau's master address file. So that was a huge success. And then with the additional $3 million of that first $10 million investment, we used it to set up our offices and to begin the infrastructure of building out what we're going to be doing for the next couple of years. We did take some dollars and we focused in on the school-based curriculum pilot. From the lessons learned in 2000 and 2010, we saw that the U.S. Census Bureau produces, great online curriculum for teachers to use, but that there was a disconnect between what was created at the national level and what could be actually used here with our California teachers. A lot of California teachers have a lot on their plates, and so we wanted to take actual teachers out of the classrooms that work on social science curriculum, have them look at the census curriculum that's out there and create curriculum that's integrated into the social science inquiry and the new stuff that they're rolling out at the Department of Ed across the state. And so that's currently undergoing. They focused on 5th, 8th, 11th, and 12th grades because they cover U.S. history, California history, and American government. So we're currently piloting that, and that was part of that initial investment of $3 million. And then we also started to work on SWORD, which you guys will see a little bit later, a quick look at that. Local complete count committees, in order to really generate interest in local complete count committees, from April to August of this year, we did 24 regional convenings across the state to really kind of, shake the trees of who's out there, who's engaged this early, and identify needs and whether certain regions were ready or not, because we really wanted folks to start to establish their local complete count committees. Of course, we're going to look at community and faith-based outreach and trusted messengers. That's kind of most of the people who are on the call are related to that. And something that worked in 2000 and definitely in 2010 when the state did not have dollars was our state agency working group. And that is really about leveraging what the state agencies are already doing. And then we'll have a media campaign. I'm going to kind of go quickly here because I want to get to Adriana, who's going to talk more about partners. Again, critical success factors for 2020. I'm not going to go over all of those, but you can clearly see that having the full commitment of all partners, bringing the resources they have, will ensure a complete count. One of the things that when they took the $40 million that we had requested in January and ended up giving us $90 million for the rest of our work, the legislature was very clear that they wanted accountability and performance measures for all outreach and communication and media partners. So that's one of the main reasons that we are not doing grants this time around and we are doing contracts. But clearly, everyone understands from our success in the past and just understanding California that we can't do it alone here at the state, and it is really about leveraging partners and giving partners the resources they need on the ground for a successful outreach. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my Deputy Director of Outreach, Adriana Martinez, to talk about partnership and other items. Thank you, Ditas. Good morning, everyone. Why partner? Increase participation by raising awareness to achieve the most accurate self-response possible among the hard-to-count populations in California. That is our focus in California with the $90.3 million that have been entrusted to us by the state of California. The hard-to-count populations and or least likely to respond, which you may not see on your screen, but it's important to remind ourselves of who those demographics are, include but are not limited to. Many of you are familiar with many of these based on the undercount in 2010. Hard to count demographic populations include but are not limited to children 0 to 5, homeless, displaced individuals, veterans, limited English proficient individuals, farm workers, immigrants and refugees, individuals with low broadband subscription rates and or no access, senior citizens or older adults. And there are a few more. And so it's important for us to focus on who they are. Now, the collaboration and partnerships across sectors, this is really important. In 2000 and 2010, partnerships across sectors were critical to the success of outreach to California's hard-to-count communities. Now, this time, we have defined priority sectors for our operation to focus on, and you can see the totality of all the sectors on your screen. But the sectors that we are prioritizing include, but are not limited to, health services, the faith-based, unions, chambers, and the business community, including corporate, technology and innovation, very important, especially given that this is the first decennial census where the U.S. Census Bureau is encouraging an online self-response, and entertainment and media, again, for the same reason. And now the sectors that we like to describe, they're very important because this is how we reach the hard-to-count demographic populations that I mentioned earlier. And of course, Ditas mentioned our local governments, counties, cities, nonprofits, the community-based organizations, all the other sectors that you can see on your screen. Now, California has 10 of the top 50 hard-to-count counties in the entire country, including the #1 hardest-to-count county, Los Angeles. The top 50 nationwide is based on the estimated population in tracts with a low response score of 28 and above in the Census Bureau's 2018 planning database. Now, for California, we've been able to uncover that the top 10 in California are Los Angeles, San Diego, San Bernardino, Orange, Riverside, Fresno, Alameda, Kern, Sacramento, and Santa Clara counties. Now you can see on your screen The map is shaded based on the California Hard to Count Index. So all of this information and data has helped us in our operation here at the California Complete Count office to operationalize and really look at the state of California based on that data. So we have carved out the state into 10 distinct regions. And again, the state will prioritize its spending on reaching hard to count and hard to reach populations in those regions. And now you can see it on your slide. The hard to count demographic populations, which I mentioned earlier, you can see the full list on your screen. Reaching target audiences through trusted messengers. This is a hallmark that those of us who were involved in 2000, we learned that it is through trusted messengers that we can achieve the most accurate self-response possible among these hard-to-count communities. So almost 20 years later, we are relying on that approach. It's at the very heart of our entire outreach campaign, is utilizing trusted messengers across our communities in California. Communication to underserved communities must come from a trusted source. So it's also, I like to say, not only the trusted messenger, but in a trusted environment. They go hand in hand. Successful outreach efforts to communities depend highly on strong relationships to leaders within the community itself. Messages developed broadly by the state must be put into language that resonates with the community of interest and in a culturally appropriate manner. As I mentioned before, in order to effectively manage California, the state established the 10 regions. This is how we will manage the investments that have been entrusted to us for this campaign by the legislature and the governor. The state grouped California's 58 counties into 10 regions based on, as I mentioned, hard-to-count populations, geographic similarities, like-mindedness of the counties, capacity of community-based organizations within the counties, and very importantly, state census staff workload capabilities. Hi, it's Ditas. Coming back to me, we talked about this already in terms of the state funding. I'll move forward, but let's talk about some key funding distribution dates that you're probably all interested in. As you know, that today we're going to release the regional administrative community-based organization RFP. I don't know if you have looked at our website, and I will go over that later. We were originally going to have 2 released at the same time, but we are waiting a few weeks after this release to release the statewide administrative community-based organization RFP. So let's go to the timeline. Again, all these documents are on our website. So you can see the counties we already have out. Their deadline for opting in is in February, on February 9th. We've released our tribal funding agreements, and then today we will release our administrative community-based organization RFPs. So the funding allocations, just to go a little bit deeper, here's our overall funding allocations for the $90.3 million. And the over $60 million is been allocated for on the ground, what I call our ground strategy. So again, moving ahead, here's the contract amounts. This again is on our website. If you wanted to go ahead and see that, I'm going to cruise through here because I want to make sure we get to some of your questions. Now, the community-based outreach, which is about 30 million right here. These are the different regions. This is a pie chart here, which you guys can see. And then on this side, although it's a lot smaller, you guys can see as if you're interested, because most of you will be probably applying by the region, what counties fall under that. So those are the counties, and again, we used our California hard to count index to determine how those dollars were distributed. So again, looking for all those documents, those are all of these documents here on your screen are online. The Census 2020 funding FAQs are being updated with many of the questions that you guys sent. We will be continuing to update those. So how will you guys find the RFPs? It'll be posted on the California eProcure website. Well, I know this sounds a little bit like, where do I go for this? Make sure you write this down. Again, this is a competitive process, and so we are trying to be to stay along the lines of this process. So in order, if you guys sign up for our mailing list, you'll be able to get those updates. Looking right there under latest news, it will also be posted there so you guys can find that. So we wanted to talk a little bit about shared toolkits and resources that the state will be sharing. We again are working on our interactive map, and some of you have participated on that. Let me see if I can get this to work. I'll just show you a little bit about this because I know, and then we'll provide the link for you guys to see this. So I'm kind of going real time here. So.
Census 2020 office welcomes you to SWORD, the statewide outreach and rapid deployment portal. SWORD is a powerful tool that will help the state and other census stakeholders reach California's hard-to-count populations and prepare for Census 2020. SWORD provides maps and other decision-making data to help our outreach and messaging partners, including local governments, foundations, community organizations, and other groups. SWORD will help California be counted. By Census Day in April 2020, SWORD will allow users to accurately assess the impact of outreach in low census response areas and quickly determine where efforts need to be refined or redoubled. The initial version of SWORD is divided into the following sections, designed to help you plan, educate, and activate your work for Census 2020. The homepage is the starting point for SWORD users. Here you will find a statewide map based on the California Hard to Count Index, which provides an overview of hard-to-count areas statewide.
So I'm going to just pause that for right now and let you guys know that we will be able to send that link out so you can actually watch that at your leisure. It's about a 5-minute video. So my communications folks says definitely visit our shared resources and check back frequently because we'll have timelines, we'll have toolkits that we're going to be posting, and then if you send questions, if you do have questions about the RFP that is released today, you can email it to contracts@census.ca.gov. So let me just go to that. That's an info email, but wanted to make sure we jump to questions. Perla, is that what you want us to do next?
Yes, please go ahead, Ditas. We've got some really fantastic questions from the folks in the audience.
Great. Okay, so we put these questions up here. So I think Adriana and I will switch back and forth a little bit on these questions. So first question is, will CBOs targeting communities broadly captured by statewide ACBOs be able to access regional ACBO funds? And then the quick and short answer to that is absolutely yes. And of course, we will leave that up to the regional ACBOs. Okay, why don't you answer this one, Adriana?
Can a CBO serve as an ACBO or administrative CBO in multiple regions? Yes, is the answer. And once the RFP is issued by end of today, there will be more info on that.
Yeah, it should be outlined in the RFP. So can a CBO without an independent 501c3 status working through a fiscal sponsor serve as an ACBO? The answer to that is we are requiring that ACBOs have a 501c3 designation.
Can a CBO be funded in multiple counties? And the answer is yes. And again, more information, which we cannot share at this moment, will be outlined in the RFP.
Will grant recipients be able to amend deliverables or project budget if they run into challenges as the year progresses? So I just wanted to kind of comment that all state funding will be distributed via contract, so we will not be doing grants. So that's kind of the first part of the question. Deliverables will not be amended. However, there are some counties on the line, and if you look at the county deliverables, what they have with counties is the first deliverables that they have include a strategic plan, which will be submitted, obviously early in 2019. And we expect them to continue to do their work and update us. And I'm talking about the counties right now. Throughout 2019, second quarter and third quarter. And by the end of third quarter, we are requiring counties to submit an implementation plan based upon the work that they've been doing over 2019. And at that point, I would expect that, whatever they have outlined in their strategic plan will be updated via the implementation plan. And I hope that it would include any challenges or things that they've run into or things that they've learned, because the implementation plan due toward the end of 2019 is really what is going to be done on the ground, and how you're coordinating. So that's how we're handling it with the counties. And you will see in the RFP that's released today, probably a similar approach in terms of how people update their plans.
Will CBOs receiving funds from a statewide or regional administrative CBO be able to re-grant those funds? Well, first of all, the state of California is not providing grants. So that's one clarification. The answer generally is yes. There are some subcontracting limitations that are outlined in the RFP.
Once state and regional ACBOs are identified, will they or the county be making the final decisions regarding the distribution of funds to CBOs? And I'd like to see here, I think it'll be done collectively, and coordination will be required between counties, regional ACBOs, and the state-wide ACBOs. And our regional program managers will want to be involved in understanding the plans at all levels. The regional program managers, their role is to really help coordinate, but to understand all the work and plans that are out there to make sure that we don't have any duplication and that we are coordinating and making sure we're not having any gaps.
Does the RFP response require funding programs and partnerships to already be in place at the time of application? No. We understand that each region, and for that matter, each county across the state, is in a different place at this point in time.
Will the state require ACBOs to use formulas to determine the amounts allocated to targeted hard-to-count populations? Yes, we expect ACBOs to use SWORD and the data behind that to help determine their hard-to-count targets.
When reporting quantitative data, what types of supporting documentation will ACBOs or counties need to submit as part of the reporting requirements? Work with the regional program manager. Work with the assigned regional program manager, who essentially is the person, the individual within the outreach team on our census team that has oversight and monitoring responsibilities, oversight of the contract terms once executed. So accountability is very, very important. Reporting requirements will be developed and included in those monthly reports, as well as the final implementation plan. And all of that, again, will be outlined and detailed in the RFP.
When is the deadline for counties to distribute funds to cities? When is the deadline for ACBOs to distribute funds to CBOs? So there's, we shared timelines that are out there. In terms of deadlines, it depends on the county and the ACBO and when certain contracts are executed. But both will be required to submit a funding timeline within their strategic plan, because obviously people will want to know right up front, you know, what they're doing strategically and how they expect to get those dollars out the door.
How will ACBO funding be distributed within each region when each region has multiple counties? Administrative CBOs will include their funding approach in their strategic plan. Again, we understand every region will be different and distinct among the 10.
For counties that do not accept their funding allocation, what is the timeline for the regional council of government to claim it instead? So we are working through this on a case-by-case basis. As you see on the timeline, we have given them an opt-in, opt-out deadline. And so our regional program managers are on the ground and will be working case-by-case to identify that timeline and when we need someone to step in.
Are there any shared resources that the state will be providing? As Ditas presented a few minutes ago, yes, the state will provide access to SWORD, our statewide outreach rapid development tool, and best practice toolkits, which will be available and updated on our Census website.
Just a few more questions. What types of activities can California-based nonprofits request funding from counties? So we're encouraging partnerships between the community-based organizations and the counties, and we're not trying to limit what activities are included in the strategic plan. And in fact, we want to encourage creativity, and we want to encourage that you use the means and the activities that are best suited to really reach our hardest to count folks.
After we read the RFP tonight, where do we send additional questions? As Ditas mentioned, you may send questions to the following email address: contracts@census.ca.gov. And again, our website will always have this information, and more detail will be provided in the RFP on that.
Yes, in the RFP that you'll see this evening, there's deadline schedules that are clearly read, and there's very direct information about how to submit questions and what the process will look like. So Perla, I just want to thank everybody for listening. Perla, I think that's we've come to the end of the questions and are closing out on our hour.
Great. Thank you so much, Ditas and Adriana, for that presentation. We will be following up with everyone with a copy of the presentation. And also, we will be sending you guys by email the RFP once it comes out so that you have it in your inboxes. I realize that we also had some live questions that we didn't have a time to get to, and we will send those over to Ditas and Adriana for them to post any answers to the state's website. And then, also, just we'd love to keep in touch with you. Thank you all for your time today. You can learn more about, software and services that we provide here at CommunityConnect Labs at our website, censusoutreach.org. And again, just a huge thanks to Ditas and Adriana for your presentation today. And we look forward to working with you all as we go forward on making sure that everyone gets counted in California. Thanks so much for joining us today.